I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight, that when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
You get the deer in the headlight look when you broach the subject, and I'm not even going to tell you what the subject is until I read scripture first. So I want to lay a basis for the foundation, and then we'll catapult into what we don't want to talk about, but we'll talk about anyway.
Yeah.
2 Thessalonians says, chapter 2, verse 11, and with every wicked deception directed against those who are perishing. So someone's perishing. Why? Because they refuse the love of the truth that would have saved them. What is the love of the truth? That Jesus is Messiah, one, but that he created all life on this planet, and nothing that was made without him was made. Then it says, verse 11, for this reason, because they've abandoned the truth, God will send them a strong delusion so that they will believe the lie. And that verse is so pregnant with meaning, in my opinion, and it's just glaring at us. And it sort of underlines exactly what is happening today, because the Darwinian paradigm has been embraced by the academic community and scientific community. The entire globe runs on Darwinism, literally. That is the paradigm which most people embrace in modernity, and it's on a global level. And there is no supernatural, there is no God, there is no creation, certainly no sin, no Messiah, nothing like that. So they've just moved Christianity and our belief completely off the table. But Darwinism sets up a vacuum, an intellectual and sort of a spiritual vacuum, and people who adhere to that. Well, where did the complexity of the DNA molecular structure come from?
Right.
This just didn't pop into being on its own volition. So the neo-Darwinists are looking out there, out into space, out into the universe, and postulating that, well, maybe a race of highly advanced extraterrestrials created us and then seeded us here. That concept, of course, is called panspermia. And we came to Earth, and they came here, and they seeded us, manipulated us, genetically manipulated us, and here we are.
The lie.
That's the lie.
This is the lie.
That's the lie. What happened in December of 2017 was absolutely unprecedented. I watch Fox, but I get news sources from news from a lot of different sources. I'm sitting here watching Fox, and Tucker Carlson, towards the end of the program, says, we're going to talk about UFOs in the next segment. And I looked at that and go, oh my gosh, and I leaned forward in my chair with my eyes glued to the set. And he introduced a man by the name of Commander Fravor, a former F-18 pilot. And Fravor sits there, and it's a triptych. They got Carlson here, and in the center, they got Commander Fravor. And in the next picture over here, they've got footage of what was classified by the government, and they're showing that, of a UFO.
By the way, it's high-tech radar video footage.
Yeah, it's the real deal.
The real deal.
So Tucker, Fravor, and the UFO, all at the same time. And it begs the question, how does someone like Commander Fravor, who doesn't have a book to sell, doesn't have a blog post, isn't on a video, he's an unknown, with all due respect, how does he wind up on Fox News? It's a managed agenda. Someone has picked up the phone, trotted this guy out with a whole dog and pony show. This is disclosure. It is disclosure. Ladies and gentlemen, folks at home, this is it. Yeah. And it happened in December.
And it's happened like 3 times now on Fox News.
Since then, he's had 3 or 4 other people come on talking about the so-called extraterrestrial presence. This is the strong Fravor says delusion. Something towards the end of the interview. Tucker Carlson, his brow is kind of furrowed, and you can see he's like really engaged in this. It's like he's not brushing this off, because the footage is real. Fravor is he's a very credible witness. And Carlson asked him, well, in your opinion, what was this? And Commander Fravor looks right at the camera and says, whatever this was not of this world. In fact, let's roll the clip and we'll show that to you.
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight, that when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
And there you see it with your own eyes, not of this world.
And we are in the window of time where all this is coalescing. It's all going to the same place. And the reason why I'm so passionate and so alarmed about this, I've been researching and writing about this for decades. But in December, we crossed a line. I mean, there was a line in the sand. We crossed a Rubicon, whatever analogy you want to use, but we're over it. Disclosure happened in December. Disclosure of the so-called extraterrestrial presence happened in December. And we need to talk about it and discuss it.
Right.
Because this is, in my opinion, the strong delusion that Second Thessalonians
It's not. And you know
what's interesting? I want to read one more scripture which sort of opens up the heavens to us. And again, coming from 2 Kings chapter 6. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee open his eyes that he may see. Now he's in a tent, they're camped out, and the Syrians are all around them. And the young man is the servant, is very disturbed by what he sees. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about him. That is absolutely astounding. So we can see that when the veil is parted, we see the hosts of heaven, and they are gathered there, in my opinion, in chariots of fire.
And they're the good guys.
They're the good guys.
Now, what is a chariot of fire?
Well, I'm glad you asked. In my opinion, there are crafts and there's technology in heaven. Just a couple of things. How is the New Jerusalem built? And how is it that it descends on the earth? It's a 1,500-mile wide structure. That must have engineering. It has certain building requirements that are necessary. It must have some sort of anti-gravity device that's equipped in it. Now, I'm not talking about Star Trek here, but we don't understand what's really going on up there. But we get glimpses of it, and this is from Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 2. And behold, 6 men came away from the higher gate, which lies towards the north, and every man had a slaughter weapon in his hand. Stop right there. What is a slaughter weapon? It's not a sword, it's something else. And then one man among them was clothed with linen, with a writer's inkhorn by his side. So this talks about technology. And technology is there. The writer is describing it in ways that it is in his grid system.
Right.
Just like in Fatima, when people looked up and they said, I saw a dull silver disc. They had never seen any type of aerial phenomena 101 years ago in Fatima, Portugal, when the so-called miracle of the sun was happening, and 80,000 people were there gathered in a field. And the eyewitnesses taken from a 1917 handwritten documents say, I looked up and saw a dull silver disc. The words UFO is not used, or flying saucer. Those terms don't come till later on in the 20th century. So they have nothing in their grid system to relate to what they're seeing, just like the writer is saying that he went away in a chariot of fire. And what's amazing, every Friday, and with all due respect to the History Channel Ancient Aliens, but every Friday on Ancient Aliens, they are promulgating the idea that we were visited in the far distant past by ancient astronauts. This is what's being seen. And what's happening is, and I get letters from people all the time, we have lost the youth, and the youth, many of our youth, are embracing the lie that we were seated here by extraterrestrials. And that's what's alarming about this. And we need to address the subject. Why? Because Fox News has already addressed it, for crying out loud. And the church still, for the most part, is afraid to talk about it. It's on Fox News. Come on, folks. This is what's happening, along with these so-called signs and wonders that we're seeing in the skies, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But this is alarming in my opinion. And the reason why I made the film was because Fatima sets a precedent, because everyone believed that this was from God. It sets up a precedent for a certain belief system. And the question is, if that's a harbinger of deception, if it wasn't from God, because something supernatural happened in the fields of the Moors around Fatima, Portugal, 101 years ago in 1917. I'm not disputing that. But what was it, and what was the source of it? And we now know that ancient goddesses who were worshipped throughout Portugal had the ability to make the sun spin. That's a matter of historical record. With that in mind, though, Fatima sets a precedent to accept the same type of phenomenon that we're seeing right in the present day. And I want to run this clip from the film Fatima 2 and look at it yourself, and after that, we'll weigh in on it. Here's the clip.
What happened at Fatima is now in the far distant past. Over 100 years ago, events occurred which are still the subject of debate today. However, there have been numerous apparition sites since 1917. This segment will explore more of a strange phenomenon that is occurring in modernity. We will present real footage of so-called apparitions and ask you to determine what it is you are looking at. Can we really ascertain what these indistinct images of light are? You be the judge.
Okay, so what we just saw were a series of so-called sun miracles and apparition sites. Let's go to the apparitions first. They're basically amorphous blobs of light. You can interpret that in any way you want to. The one over towards the end, the Coptic church, we see a figure because it's got some blue thing coming down. That's supposed to be Mary of the Bible. But there's no way I can really ascertain and discern in any type way, shape, or form what this I'm looking at. And next to it, we see a smaller figure, which is supposed to be the baby Jesus. But as a student of biblical prophecy and the Bible, we know that Jesus is no longer a baby. You know, he would, if he appears at all, he will show the wounds of the crucifixion. He's a grown man. He's sitting at the right hand of the Father. So right off the bat, you get these images which are contradictory to the biblical narrative, but they are amorphous blobs of light. And we see the crowd, there is no discernment, absolutely zero discernment. No one is testing the spirits. No one is rebuking first or ask questions later. They're just embracing what they're seeing. You hear the clapping. Then other apparition sites, specifically the one in Nigeria, where you hear the guy go, whoa, you hear the hysteria of the people. Something is going on there that they've never seen before or witnessed before. But is it from the God of the Bible? Or is it part of the strong delusion that we are seeing? The sun miracle that we show in the film from Knock, Ireland, that's in 2017, just last year. We hear the hysteria of the crowd as they're looking up and watching this so-called sun miracle. So Fatima, and this is why I take umbrage in the whole story that's been doctored through the years. And I say that with all due respect. But here's the deal. Fatima sets an acceptance, a precedent to accept what happened. So when we see these things, it's all okay. It's not all okay. These amorphous blobs of light are nothing more than that. And we're told that Satan can come as an angel of light. You'll notice we're not attacking Mary in any way, shape, or form. What we are attacking is the phenomenon itself. And I truly believe this is part of the strong delusion we are there. And because of all the plethora of movies and films and television shows and everything else, I think in some ways it's desensitized people. So when we actually get the real thing, when Tucker Carlson brings Commander Fravor on with real film of a real UFO, people go, oh, well, I've already seen that. They're desensitized to it, so there's no reaction. I fell off my chair when I saw that. I couldn't believe what I was seeing because that's disclosure. And again, we said earlier, since then, 3 or 4 other people have come on the Tucker Carlson show. Nick Pope was the most recent, talking about the reality of the so-called UFO going to ramp phenomenon. Up, and the climax, of course, when it hits, when it really reveals, everything changes. That's the game changer. And I think let me just add one thing, that many of the witnesses who were in the field, and all the information is drawn from the handwritten documents from 1917. Nothing that comes, we don't get into 28 or 34 or anything that comes later. We draw from 1917. Witness after witness after witness said, I looked up and saw a dull silver disc. And the picture in Jose's book, the original glass plates, shows a circular object directly over the apparition site. This is a smoking gun. This photograph's never seen before.